if I think about, am I happier now, I would have to say yes. It has to do with knowing yourself, knowing your self-worth. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is our chat today, and we're continuing some of my thoughts on happiness over 50. I wanted to talk about self-worth, whether you know your self-worth, because I'm really struck by how I speak with women and they're like 60s, 70s, and they tell me they are actually happier than they were when they were younger. And I'm like, oh my God, that's quite something. That's quite something. I mean, knowing how we all value how we look young and everything, you would think, oh my God. You would think that by the time you go older, it's going to be a disaster of unhappiness. But it turns out a lot of those people I speak with feel happier as they go older. And I try to think about some of the reasons. I think there's going to be reasons. Still, if we live a nice life, we try to be healthy and everything, we try to live well, you know, it's part of the happiness. But mentally, I try to think about the one ingredient, one of the main ingredients that really causing women to feel perhaps happier. And it occurs to me that it has to do with self-worth, knowing their self-worth. And at least for me, I feel ultimately that's really where I am in my journey of having absolutely no doubt of what my self-worth is. So that's what I want to talk about. I feel like there are some very clear understanding that we need to have, that I've come to have, in order for me to really feel that what makes someone happy when you're older is your self-worth. If you don't have your self-worth, I think it's just going to be hard. It's going to be hard. How are you going to make it clear to everyone that you know your work? So I have to say that coming from an environment really where, even in the school system, you know, where I was, it was the master's classical sort of approach to learning. Students weren't engaging in class. It was just the professor speaking the whole time. If they ask you a question and you barely really want to answer, because it was not an environment that's really conducive to people imposing their self-worth and sharing that self-worth. Question, do you know your self-worth? And I feel that by 50, I would hope that we all really know what it is. And I think that in my case, without going into the dark space, certain representation in certain places and certain circumstances may not be able to advance. Does that go in then to define one's self-worth? And that's something that I've had to struggle with. I'm not going to say that I've not been affected throughout my life. And that was the reason why I would say now I'm perhaps happier than I was before, because whether you want it or not, when you don't have the experience in life, you are easily impressionable. You get impressed easily, and you're trying to get approval from people, and you're trying to do all that, and you're attaching your self-worth to that. And even majority, they may have their own experience in terms of how much they're competing with others. That's going to determine their self-worth. But I can only speak of my experience. It's added hurdle to estimating your self-worth when society is projecting presumption about what they think you're worth, how intelligent you are, and so forth. Can you imagine that, when a lot of it has to do with society prejudicial projections. I have to say that you have to really think about establishing what your self-worth is. The career advancement, the money, and so forth, they are important in terms of knowing your self-worth, but not necessarily. It's really how much you feel whatever you give, what you're doing, is benefiting someone else. It should benefit your pocket. There is nothing wrong with that. But somehow I feel I didn't start having my self-worth until I really got involved in humanitarian work. I studied caring about, my children. Like, I had career and everything in my case, but caring about parents, caring about my children. Fortunate enough to do a work that has impact for the less fortunate. So it's easy for me to gain some satisfaction from that. But even if you're not doing this type of work that has direct impact, there are ways of using your work to contribute to helping others. The most important thing is you don't want to feel your self-worth is more than someone else. It's important for us to realize that we are part of the whole mosaic of the universe. But it is true. I cannot imagine that someone who feels they are superior to someone else really has real self-worth. It's the actual opposite. I feel like if you have self-worth, that means you can quickly identify the worth of everyone else. I think that these are signs that you have self-worth. So about sign that we have self-worth, right? The first sign is that we recognize that our self-worth doesn't have to do with all the material stuff we have. At least we should use the material stuff for the good of others. The second sign that we have self-worth is we don't feel our self-worth means we are superior to someone else. No matter what the education level of people that I speak with, if the person is not a nasty person, because I've had conversation and rapport with very educated people who are so nasty, I don't think they have self-worth. But no matter what the level of education of the person, if the person is a great person, I've been able to learn and fortify myself from the experience. How do you get your self-worth? Society is going to assign our accomplishment as a value for us, right? Or society is going to assign our look as a value for us. But when we're facing ourselves, are we really going to have self-worth, no matter what society is valuing, if we do not recognize our own value? And oddly enough, no matter how much society put the value on us based on those external things, we may act as if we have the self-worth, but we might be surprised that we still are very unhappy when we're facing ourselves, if something about us is blocking us from understanding the true value of ourselves. I think like the stuff that has worked in my journey to understanding my self-worth was when I realized that my self-worth didn't depend on what other people actually value. It really depended on what internally I feel about what my value to society really is. It takes time to get there. I don't know how I came to recognize that. It's just something, a flip in the mind, something clicks, because you start not taking things for granted. And when you don't take things for granted, you're like, oh my God, whatever I've done actually has some value. It's meaningful. It's getting very dark. Yeah, it's getting dark. This was my thought for this evening about self-worth and how crucial it is if we are to really feel happy by the time we are 50 or something. We have to recognize that whatever we do that's good is adding up to our value, and it's all good. It's all good. Do the best that we can given what we have. Hope this thought helps. Until next time, bye.